Okay, so is Detroit going to be the next TGL team? This is the news of the day, and for those that didn't see, there has been a trademark filed, and it's pending by TGL Holdings of Motor City Golf Club. What do you think?
Well, there's also news too, apparently, that was out there about Detroit Lions ownership, the Ford family, apparently being at TGL, checking out the facilities. Potentially, they're getting involved. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, we talk about it all the time. Michigan's a huge golf state.
Yeah.
I guarantee that in this sports landscape, you'd get people behind that team, depending on, of course, who the players are.
I love Motor City Golf Club too, and it's a great name. And of course, would love to be involved with that on some level, being Metro Detroit golfers. But you have not been to TGL, right?
I have not.
I have.
No.
But
Right.
it's really cool, and it's really interesting because I think TGL started kind of slow. And when I was there, it was like week 2, week 3. I was really early on with TGL, and I got a tour. And Jason Langwell, who used to be the executive director of the Rocket Mortgage Classic at the PGA Tour event here in Detroit, he is now the chief revenue officer at TGL. And I had actually texted him earlier this morning about this as well. And I'm not going to say anything, but I think this is really cool if it ends up happening. Because, like you said, Detroit's such a it's a huge sports city and loves golf. And currently, the league had announced they're looking to expand, and they also announced that they are going to be probably adding a women's division as well, which is cool. LPGA players, whatever, and they play out of the SoFi Center in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. Founded by Tomorrow Sports, Tiger and Rory. Currently has 6 teams: Atlanta Drive, Boston Common, Jupiter Links Golf Club, Los Angeles Golf Club, New York Golf Club, and the Bay Golf Club. God, I'd be torn. Imagine when Motor City plays Jupiter. I mean, I don't know who I'd root for. No, I'd have to root for Motor City. But for those that don't know, I do have a condo in Jupiter, so I'd be so torn. I spend a ton of time in Jupiter. But yeah, it's a great area down there. And Kyle, I think this is really cool. It's cool to see how this whole league has developed and the ratings that it'll end up getting. I think it was a very successful first year.
I agree. I think you could tell early on with TGL, the players didn't really know what to do. They were trying to figure it out. What is this? How competitive? And then you could see within the first few weeks, I don't know if there was a mandate or a conversation or the players just, quite frankly, understood it better and wanted to have more fun, but they loosened up a ton. I mean, and they were having a good time, and they were getting into it, making some big shots, and going nuts for the crowd and whatnot. So I think they very quickly adjusted to what it was, and we talk about it all the time. Like on tour, it's tense. It's uncomfortable almost walking and following a golf tournament with how focused those guys are. TGL is the exact opposite. And I think they again, realize that very quickly that, like, hey, of course, you always want to work on your game. You always want to make sure you're hitting good shots and not embarrassing yourself. At the same time, there's got to be a little humility, some fun, some excitement. And I think they captured that really over the final few weeks.
Well, I just love this overall, too, because Detroit is, as we said, a huge sports city. Like you mentioned, people will get behind it. And keep in mind, though, too, it's not like there has to be golfers, for those that don't know, it's not like there has to be golfers from Detroit playing on Detroit's team. It's just a team that is named Detroit, and of course there's initiatives and stuff they do locally or with charities or with connections to the teams, whatever. But it's not necessarily golfers at all that are from Detroit. Look at Justin Thomas. He's on Atlanta. He has no connections to Atlanta. But my point being, these guys are on teams that they all play out of Palm Beach Gardens, but the teams are named throughout the country. I think it'd be cool. I mean, I'm not going to speak to this is just my opinion here, this in terms of expansion, but it'd be cool if eventually they did travel a little bit to these cities and did some activations locally. Again, the stadium down there is so incredible, and that's home base, and the technology is just amazing. I got a private tour kind of a little bit down there. It was awesome. But it would be cool if they can figure out some sort of activations locally with these teams as well.
Yeah, I wonder, the next phase of it. I mean, it sounds great on paper, and obviously I think people would love it, and you could sell a premium ticket to be that close to some of these guys in that setting. But from a technology standpoint, what facilities would make it work and actually make it worthwhile
Or is
to
it an
do
outdoor
it?
thing?
But
Right.
also these guys' schedules. I mean, that's one thing. That's one of the reasons why you had all these guys go to the live tours, because their schedule's insane and they want to be able to control it, play less golf, apparently, and make more money. For these regular tour players, I mean, they're lucky to be able to, on a Monday night, boom, they're back there, they're playing. Maybe Tuesday
Right,
night,
it's
they're
convenient
playing,
for
and then
them.
they're out.
Yeah.
And then they're off to the next tournament.
Yep,
So
totally.
I do think that would logistically, become a factor and come into play. But I'd love to see them obviously travel around. And of course, I think if there was a Detroit team, and I think they would find the right guys to be on that team that would fit the, it's got to be Detroit versus everybody. It's got to be,
Yeah,
there's got to be
right.
some certain grit. It's got to be some grinders out there on the tour that are going to be a part of the Motor City team. But it'd be fun. It really
I
would.
wonder who'd be a part of it. We speculate any names that could be a part of it. You think about a guy like Tony Finau that filled in last year. It's not part of Live,
But always plays in the Rocket.
right?
Always plays in the Rocket.
Won the Rocket.
And just committed to the Rocket again this year as well. So
That could be a guy that you could absolutely imagine would be on the team. I'd almost
Yep.
assume he is. And I was at the Masters a couple years ago and talked. Actually, I spoke to Tony Finau's wife about being in Detroit. They said they loved it. So again, maybe that could actually be a perfect one. You're hearing it here first. But yeah, again, you're totally right. The convenience of being right there in Jupiter, and they even have mentioned that's one of the reasons why Tiger was able to get involved. Who plays less golf?
it's right down the road.
It's right down the road. He can be in and out. He can play whatever. But yeah, I'd love to see some sort of in-person, even if it's one event per year, a cool event in each city. Think about, Rory McIlroy when TGL was in Tomorrow Sports, when all this was announced. He who plays for Boston, did an interview on CNBC at Fenway Park and was talking with the owner of the Red Sox and who's involved and everything about it. How cool would it be if one match per year, either in season or just a special event out of season, would be, you do one at Fenway, right? You do one at Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta. You do one here in Detroit at Belle Isle or inside Ford Field or come on, how cool would that be if you were able to do one inside Ford Field and people would attend? I think a ton of people would attend something like that, especially knowing the records that Detroit breaks with attendance, with NFL Draft, with the Tigers games last year. Brunson just said the other day, who got absolutely heckled and booed and cussed out here in Detroit, he goes, God, I've never seen the Little Caesars Arena have that atmosphere in Detroit since I've played. That was an incredible atmosphere. I'll give them that. And this hasn't even been a huge basketball city the past few years.
No, there's no doubt. I would wonder about a huge arena or stadium like that. That is a big ask. I personally
block it off. You could.
Yeah, you could box it into the corner or something like that, like they do with Final Fours at some of these huge arenas or whatever it may be. There's no doubt that they would be able to do it. And I think there'd be a ton of interest. Again, it's just the logistics of how they go about, doing it, and the technology and the rotating green or whatever that they have. You would almost have to get a few investments to build a few more of these facilities, honestly, around the country. In order to make it work, but
it would have to be
people would show up.
It would
There's
have to
no
be a
doubt
breakout
about that.
event or something.
Sure, right, right.
But yeah, I think it's great news for Detroit, great news for TGL, and I'm excited to watch the growth of TGL. Again, it was fascinating how the season started versus how the season ended, and the drama, the intrigue. It's a pretty fun, pretty easy watch on a Tuesday night. I think they have the right time of the week picked out, and I think they got some great leadership there. You got two of the best of all time with Rory and Tiger, and then you have a lot of executives. Jason does a great job. The other Mike McCarley, the NBC executive who's involved, obviously a ton of experience, does a fantastic job. So I think the leadership is in place, and it's just about continuing to figure out the format and the fan engagement, because the names are there too. When I went there, I think it was fascinating to see the technology, and again, very early on, but they're going to continue to get better with the fan engagement part of it, both in person and remotely, because it obviously is a TV sport, and the arena is very small. So what are they going to focus more on? Are they going to focus more on engaging people on TV? Is there some sort of thing to tie in cell phones and betting and participation? I'm sure they're thinking about all that stuff from a in-person standpoint, and
Well,
probably more importantly, a viewer at home standpoint.
No doubt. And, let's be honest, I think the next layer of this is, getting people who are just professional athletes
Yep.
to play in these events.
Oh, yeah. That's a
Say
great
say
point,
it's
too.
a 4-man team, from Atlanta or whatever it may be, and then as a fifth, you add in Michael Penix if
Right.
he's a golfer or something like that. Or if it's the Motor City team, you add in Jared Goff or
Sure.
whoever is a golfer, and all of a sudden, they're almost this
That's a great idea.
this
Yeah.
fifth person who, do they play the whole time? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe they only play in special shots or substitution shots or whatever it may be. But like, why wouldn't you bring in some of these bigger stars
No
in
doubt.
these other sports? That in my opinion would be a ratings driver. It would get a lot more attention, and I think it would just be more fun in general as well.
And it's where golf has been going with the Creator Classic and with all this other
Yeah.
stuff, and with Grant's videos of
Well, Grant's got to be on the Motor City team, right?
He's
Grant
from
Horvath,
here, yeah.
he's a Michigan
Right.
guy.
Yeah, he probably will.
I mean, he absolutely needs to get an exemption directly to the Motor City team.
But that is with the Creator Classic and with all of these YouTubers that are playing with pros, and we've talked about it. It's a very relatable, very bridge between the weekend warrior, the amateur golfer, and the tour players, which with what these YouTubers are doing.
Very low stakes.
Right.
Right.
So I think getting more athletes involved and getting influencers involved to complement and play alongside these pros, again, it almost kind of elevates and brings the viewer into that world. Bring them into your world a
Right.
little bit, as we've heard from,
What a
from
great
one of
quote.
our friends. But yeah. Overall, really excited for this.
Same. And honestly, I just want to see who is still left out there. You mentioned Tony Finau. I think that'd be a great fit. But would love to see who else might fill
Yeah.
out the team. Who's involved from Detroit? Is it true that, maybe the Ford family and Lions ownership are getting involved and want to do something there? I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunity. And if they're playing in the sandbox, if you will, of like 1.5 to 2.5 million viewers for that first season, on any
Yeah.
given night, that's a pretty good number for a league that's brand new. I got to believe that with some of these creative things that they can make happen, they got to be able to get that viewership up pretty quickly.
And if and when, the PGA Tour and the Live ever merge or ever come together, it's a whole nother game. Because
PGA Tour versus Live.
this isn't this is actually backed by the PGA Tour, right?
Yeah.
So we would need some sort of settlement and merger. But once that happens, then the floodgates are open with guys that could participate. We even saw last year at TGL, Brooks Koepka showed up and watched and was there for an event. So that's a sign in itself that there could be a future with some of the. I mean, think about if you had Bryson, if you had Brooks, if you had DJ who lives right there in TGL now. It would even take it to another level. So very
Totally
excited
agree.
to see.
Let me ask you this as we kind of wrap it up here. Do you find it more entertaining to watch TGL than you have with the quote unquote Capital One matches or whatever over the last several years?
Overall, probably.
Same.
Yeah, Capital One. I love watching, obviously, real course, outdoor golf, whatever. But there's more intrigue with TGL, and it's more of a condensed thing. Sometimes the Capital Ones, it's drawn
There's so
out.
much
and then-
downtime.
Yeah, there's
and
downtime.
there's so much you almost have to fill all of this, conversation, and there just isn't that much to say. Whereas TGL, you're hitting a shot, you're
Right.
reacting, it's fun, show
It's
the crowd,
quick, yeah.
then you're on to the
And
next.
that's what people want.
I totally agree. I think it's a much better viewing experience. I think there's too much pressure on the match and trying to make sure that you're keeping it entertaining because there isn't enough.
And think about just
there.
the levels of that too, where the YouTube, the Creator Classic's different because that was a live event at Sawgrass. But for these YouTube challenges and YouTube videos, that's an edited video piece afterwards of the best stuff,
And people love it.
So there's not that downtime.
Right.
It's the Scotty and Grant video was an hour and 20 minutes, hour and a half, whatever it was. They're editing the best stuff, which helps the viewer to stay engaged, helps them obviously with their views, but it helps the viewer to stay engaged and without that level of downtime. So I think that's where stuff has gone, and TGL is kind of a condensed version of that, where you're not, unlike the match where it's okay, hit off, now we got to walk to the carts, now get in the carts, now the broadcast got to fill time. There's all this other stuff.
Right.
It's just amazing where it's amazing how this has all progressed over the years. If you want to almost view it as a timeline or a genesis of this whole concept of creator golf and YouTube golf, it all goes back to just the classic as old as time pro-ams at events. You know, pro-ams have always been the way for people to play with the pros, and for a lot of times it was kind of, and maybe still is, kind of a pain in the ass for these pros to have to just basically sit there on this, sit there above everyone and talk and give advice and kind of entertain for 18 holes or 9 holes
when they're focused,
when they're trying to get ready for a tournament.
Yeah.
So it's kind of been this nuisance. You'd say, not that pros don't appreciate the sponsors and enjoy it at times, but the Pro-Am has now evolved to YouTube golf and creator golf and getting people involved, And that's the best part about it, where it can be on their own time and it can be a different level of production as well to again, bring that amateur to the level of a pro. So I think it's all just one big evolution, and this is probably the next step. Be very curious to see, obviously, if Motor City Golf Club comes to fruition. Comment below and make sure you guys follow. Curious to hear your thoughts.